Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Ben Frazier. You're not going to want to miss this show. That's The Best of Investing on Saturday at 8 p.m. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And since we are toward the end of football, today's trivia theme is the Super Bowl, and we'll see how much everybody knows about the Super Bowl. Now, today we do have a special guest, Doug Haworth. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, that's good. Haworth, yeah.
Haworth. Okay, yeah, that's actually how it is. Okay. Doug is a renowned economist and founder of Hypernomics, Inc., reshaping market analysis and catching the eye of industry leaders like NASA and Lockheed Martin. Get ready for his upcoming book, Hypernomics, using hidden dimensions to solve unseen problems, a source of inspiration for fresh ideas and game-changing innovations. Doug, holy smokes, that's pretty cool. Welcome to The Best of Investing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I love your show. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a big honor.
Thank you. Hey, listen, thanks for being our guest. This is really cool. We haven't had this good. I've had economists, well-renowned economists on the show, but something like this sounds a little different, especially with NASA and Lockheed Martin. So tell us a little bit about what hypernomics is.
Well, hypernomics is a new word that comes from a prefix, hyper, and a root nonomy. So hyper, in one sense of the word, means existing in more than 3 dimensions, as in hyperspace. And then nonomy is a field of study. So hypernomics is a field of study that exists in more than 3 dimensions. It starts out with 4 dimensions and goes from there. And I got the idea watching my wife buy a washing machine, of all things.
Okay, you got to tell us how that come about.
Well, we were a little bit more background there. I'd always been wondering about the standard coordinate systems that were taught back in high school, and I'd always thought there was something missing in that. And so the wife and I went out looking for a new washing machine, and we've been trudging around a bunch of stores, and we finally rolled into a local big box store. And so we rolled up to these washing machines, and she said, she's starting to study one. She says, I like this washing machine. It's got more capacity than we have at home. And I thought, capacity versus price. Now that's what we analysts would call a 2-dimensional problem.
Yeah.
And then she said, we've only got 1 gentle cycle on our machine back home. I want something that's got more than 1 gentle cycle. In fact, lots of cycles. And this one's got more cycles. Yeah. I thought, cycles versus price. She's up to a 3D problem. And so then I saw the next. I like this machine. She did too. And I saw the next machine up the line, the same brand, and more capacities, more cycles.
Yeah.
And I said, what about this one? She says, well, it's too expensive. We can't afford it. And then I realized that we were part of a group of people that were going to buy this machine, and our sale was going to push the quantity out a little bit this way along a quantity price axis. So quantity this way and price this way. We were part of the quantity that was going to be sold in the course of the year. So I realized that she was solving a 4-dimensional problem in her head. She was looking at capacity, cycles, price, and quantity. So I looked around the store, and I realized that everybody, for every product in that store, and indeed the whole world, was solving 4D problems in their head.
Yeah, because are you talking about, like, once you buy the machine, that's one less machine is on the floor to be sold to somebody else?
Well, it's one more machine that's been sold, and it actually pushes the quantity out that's been sold for that year. So that's something that you can plot. And so what we do is we plot quantity versus price in 2 dimensions in our system. and then we would plot what we call value attributes. So the value
Because
attribute.
it goes beyond this just typical supply and demand.
Oh yeah. This is, in fact, glad you brought that up, Edward. It reveals what we call the law of value and demand, and that's got 4 clauses to it. The law of value and demand states that the product features drive value, value determines price, price limits quantity sold, and quantity sold is a feature. And people will say to me, Doug, it's circular. I go, yes, it's always been circular.
Yeah.
That's the way it's always
a good
worked.
point.
Yeah, and it turns out that every market that starts to mature starts to self-aggregate in ways that we can describe, including the stock market, which is why we're here today talking about the art of investing. It actually works for the stock market too.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to continue on after our break to talk more about that because it's very interesting. All right. And again, just to remind Doug, the rules here, I'm going to ask the question. If you know the answer, don't say anything yet. We'll let you answer it when we come back. Excuse me. So our trivia theme is the Super Bowl. And here's our question. Played in January of 1982, Super Bowl XV1, which would be 16, narrowly won by the San Francisco 49ers, thanks in large part to their kicker capping off 4 drives with field goals. Who was this kicker for the 49ers, who was born in Austria, I didn't know that, and would play for the team for 11 seasons? And I'll give you a little bonus if you happen to know what other career he had other than being a kicker. All right, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Doug Haworth. How are you? Okay, here's our first trivia question about the Super Bowl. Played in January 1982, Super Bowl 16 was narrowly won by the San Francisco 49ers over the Cincinnati Bengals, thanks in large part to their kicker, capping off 4 drives with field goals. Who was this kicker for the 49ers, who was born in Austria and would play for the team for 11 seasons? Do you remember that, Doug?
No, I remember the game, and I remember it was Joe Montana, I think, that was part of that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the kicker. That's a good question, Edward.
So the kicker was Ray Wersching. And the bonus was, what was his other career? He was actually a CPA. Yeah, I tell you, those accountants can kick. All right. So Doug is a renowned economist and founder of Hypernomics. So why should companies employ Hypernomics analysis before making any decisions?
Well, it turns out that the customers that buy your products will aggregate their behaviors in ways in which you can describe it before you get into it. And they also have a self-limiting feature when it comes to demand. So, for example, there was an outfit in Reno, Nevada called Arion. Arion was founded by Robert Bass, one of the Bass brothers out of Fort Worth, Texas, billionaire. And he decided he was going to build a supersonic business jet. And so what we say in our little field is that you have to get 3 things right. You've got to get the cost right.
Yeah.
You got to get the value right, which is what the sustainable price is, and you got to get the demand right.
Yeah.
So he came up with a model, and he actually posted to everybody. He said, "This is what I'm going to spend to develop it," and we worked out the development cost using some other models, and that seemed reasonable. He had the right number of digits there. He was within a shouting distance of the cost it was going to take to develop it. And then he posted a price for his vehicle. It was $120 million for this 8-passenger, 1,000-mile-an-hour capable jet. By some measures, it was worth more than that. So 120 seemed kind of reasonable. But then we looked at the demand. Now, he started out in 2014 with 20 firm orders. And I had thought to myself, that's not going to make it. He wanted to sell 300 in a decade. and 500 overall. And if you follow Boeing or Airbus, you know that they typically don't launch a plane until they have hundreds of firm orders in hand, and then they rush off and they start to make the new plane. But they don't rush off and build a new plane just because they think it's going to sell without proving that it's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so it turns out in that market and in every other market, there's what's known as an outer demand frontier, which describes the
Okay.
limit, the price limit that the customers have relative to how much they're going to buy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
but
when they start,
let me ask you, interrupt you for a
sure.
second on it, if I could. There's the cost in that case. There's the cost of the plane, 120
Hmm.
million for 8 passenger. The question I would ask is, what, because of fuel and all that other kind of stuff, what could you reasonably charge a customer to fly on that, where they would be willing to pay it, or was that, or were these going to be just private ones only? You
This
know,
was going to be a private one, but that's an excellent question, Edward, because
like,
there's other companies now that are Boom Supersonic, for
that's
example, which is what you're
yeah,
probably alluding to, is trying to make a commercial jet. And that's a huge, huge problem. And what you're alluding to there too is that other commercial jet manufacturers and the engine manufacturers are getting massive amounts of money coming to them by improving the fuel efficiency and making it very economical to fly from place to place. So
yeah,
those of you who are in the industry might know that jet airliners, today's airliners fly at a slower speed typically than what they did 20 and 30 years ago. And the reason for that is they get better fuel economy.
cool. Yeah.
So that really does touch on a point. But in the supersonic business jet realm, they thought that, well, if you're wealthy enough to buy the plane, you're going to be wealthy enough to make it, fly all year long. But that still is a consideration. You just don't want to have something willy-nilly that's going to cost you so much that you can't afford to fly
Yeah.
it. But and when they launched this demand frontier, again, this outer boundary that describes if you plot a bunch of dots, you plot the quantity and you plot the price, there's this limit
Yeah.
out here that said that when they launched at the price they wanted, there was a limit of 47 of these vehicles they could sell. Now, you recall that they started with 20, and then 5 years pass, and
Yeah.
they still have just the same 20 orders. Now, the
Yeah.
demand
Because I mean, there's
frontier,
only so many people that can afford $100 million with which, and it's
precisely.
just, I mean, and then from there, there's all kinds of extra costs. You have to have mechanics. You have to have the
Oh, yeah.
pilot. You have to
Oh,
have the
yeah.
fuel. The cost of fuel. I mean, you have to be a mega billionaire really to be able to afford that. Because
Precisely.
even the billionaires, they might buy a jet for 20 million bucks. And that
Right.
still gives them a lot of leeway to, go ahead and spend the rest of the money on fuel, et cetera. Tell you what, look, we're going to cut to our second commercial break here. We're talking the Super Bowl. So the New York Giants won Super Bowl 21 in 1987 behind a dominant performance from their quarterback. Who was this player who had only 3 incompletions on 25 pass attempts while throwing for 3 touchdowns? So basically, who was the quarterback for the New York Giants for Super Bowl 21, which was in 1987? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Also want to make a mention here for iTex, which is a company that does barter exchange, totally legal. Get a 1099, but it's a way to kind of participate without paying cash. Check them out, iTex, ITEX, and you'll see what I mean. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown and my special guest, Doug Haworth. All right, don't touch that dial. Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing. I'm right here now. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Here is our trivia question number 2 that we asked. Welcome back, audience. Okay, they're talking about the Super Bowl here. The New York Giants won Super Bowl 21 in 1987. I believe they beat the Denver Broncos back then, behind a dominant performance from their quarterback. Basically, who was the quarterback for the New York Giants, who, if I remember correctly, play in New Jersey,
Right.
or at least they did back then.
Yeah.
Do you remember who the quarterback was?
I think it was Phil Simms.
It was Phil Simms. All right. Well, so far you're 50. You're 1 for 2. That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
What I do want to make a mention also here, the Super Bowl is coming up. What better way to um, celebrate it than to go to Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael? Pizza the way it ought to be. I got to figure that they're going to be busy. They have awesome pizza.
Oh
Check
yeah.
them out. The one in San Rafael, Mountain Mike's Pizza. All right. So we have Doug Howarth in our studio here on Zoom, so to speak. So how can hypernomics help me make household economic decisions?
Well, it can be used to figure out the best deal, say for that washing machine that we were talking about. If you wanted to take the time to plot the washing machines for their cycles and their capacity and their warranty against their price, you could use some software that we've designed. We have the world's first
Okay.
patented software for 4D analytics.
Huh.
You could gather all that data together, push it into the model, and it would tell you, after you did the work, it would tell you which one was the best deal.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever I buy anything, be it, going to a place that sells tools or
Mhm.
Best Buy or one of these things. They're always trying to sell you an extended warranty. My
Oh,
first
sure.
question is wait, isn't this good enough? I mean, it's like, after 90 days, what is it going to go broke? But if it's that bad after 90 days, I shouldn't buy it to begin with. But some
Sure.
of these things, it's like, oh, I know what it was. I just bought a printer at Staples, and
Right.
the printer was on sale. It was a really good printer. We're looking at it right now. It was only like $100, and it's like, yeah, do you want to extend your warranty for 4 years? For another like $90 or something ridiculous, right? And I'm going, no, I'll just buy a new one. I
Right.
know we're a little bit of a throwaway society, but at least a lot of things become obsolete. Not so much a washing machine. Um,
Well,
but
televisions, for example,
yeah,
televisions are 97% less expensive now than they were 20 years ago. If
that's
you measure the
amazing.
dollars per pixel per
Yeah,
screen inch, it's
and there's so much, and
really
they have so much. They're so much better too
yeah, right.
with capacities. Yeah. So, and before I forget, because I always want to remember how people can get a hold of our guests if they have more questions. So, give out your information.
Sure. The company is Hypernomics Inc. So if you go to hypernomics.com, that's hypernomics.com, you can take a look at our software for sale, examine all the posts that we've put up over the years, see a bunch of videos that I've done. And there's a link there to the books, the book that I'm selling right now, which is entitled Hypernomics: Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. You can also find that book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Wiley's sites, and you should be able
Oh,
to
yeah.
walk into your local Barnes and Noble and discover it there for yourself. I'm pretty
Yeah, I'm trying
excited.
to
I
think.
should be in. What's that?
Well, I was going to say that, I'm trying to think of a 4D type thing because, it's four dimensional in a way, right? Because,
Yeah,
one thing affects another, like you said, it's sort of circular. And so eventually you kind of come to a pinnacle because you got to make a decision on something.
yeah. What it
Yeah.
does for those, well, you've got people that are going to see this visually, and most of the people are going to see it or going to consume it over the air, right? That's how it works for you here? Most people are listeners as opposed to
Yeah.
viewers.
Yeah. But I mean, I would think that most people, they'd either write it down, some people are driving in their car.
Right.
But, if they just Google hypernomics, they should find you, right?
Yeah, they should find us. Yes. The
Okay.
way to envision this in a four-dimensional system, the trick, the breakthrough in thought that I had that enables this is that this system starts at zero and it starts at zero and goes positive in every direction from there. And so the easiest way to imagine this is if you can take a rectangular house with two square rooms. So, for example, if you
Yeah.
wanted to see
Yeah.
something like this, we like to envision what we call the House of Elvis. Elvis Presley was born in a two-room shotgun shack in Tupelo, Mississippi, and it was rectangular, basically had two square rooms. And if you're facing the house, if you can imagine the right-hand room against the back wall, you would plot the quantities on one axis, the horizontal axis, the axis that runs across the floor, where the wall
Yeah.
meets the floor, and then vertically that would be price.
Yeah.
And then the other room where the vertical axis is still price, if you could imagine, say for a car, electric
Yeah.
car, one dimension might be horsepower and another dimension might be range. And that's really all that it is that it takes things you know. This is the important part. It takes a lot of things that you know and combines them into a view that you probably haven't seen before, but you can use. And that's the crucial part of this, is that it takes things that you're familiar with and combines them into some view that allows you
And
to make more decisions
it's like
for
a
yourself.
program. You just kind of input the various
It
aspects
is a,
into it.
it's a
Okay.
software program, yes.
Very good. Okay. Here's our third trivia question on the Super Bowl. Time goes fast. It's kind of fascinating stuff. So Super Bowl, boy, they got these Roman numerals here. Okay, this would
Right.
be Super Bowl 58 in 2014 showcased the versatility of a Seattle Seahawks player who led the team in rushing and also had an 87-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Who was this wide receiver who, in addition to winning the Super Bowl, also won 2 national championships in college with the Florida Gators? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with Doug Hallworth. Trivia question number 3. Super Bowl 58 in 2014 showcased the versatility of a Seattle Seahawks player who led the team in rushing and also had an 87-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Who was this wide receiver who, in addition to winning the Super Bowl, also won 2 national championships in college with the Florida Gators? This one's a hard one because
It is hard. And I used to live in Seattle. I should know this. The rest of my family up in Seattle is going to kick me for not knowing this. I don't know that one. That's a good one.
Percy Harvin.
Percy Harvin.
But
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
just somebody I just, again, one of those people
Wow.
who you just don't think of too much. You think of
No.
Russell Wilson and that sort of thing, and Richard Sherman. But yeah, you don't think of
Right.
Percy Harvin. Sorry, Percy. Don't anything personal. Just we don't remember you too. I remember the
Right. We
name,
should
but
have
I just
remembered
remember
you.
him doing that well.
Right.
Okay, so we're in the studio here with Doug to talk about hypernomics. So, from an investing standpoint, how we talked about washing machines, and I kind of
Right.
get that. How does hypernomics work with investing?
Well, what we do with hypernomics is we gather data. We've invested my own funds. We've been running for 47 months, and we're doing better than the S&P 500, and we're doing better than Berkshire Hathaway. And the chances of us having that due to just to luck was less than 1 in 1 quadrillion for both of these. So,
How did you figure that out? 1 in 1
well,
quadrillion.
we used some statistics. There's a statistical method where you can compare 2 columns of data, and we worked that out. It's called the student's t-test. We use a student's t-test to validate the likelihood that we just did this due to luck, and it's
Gotcha.
infinitesimal. So
Okay.
what we do is we kind of follow a Warren Buffett model of investing. We do what we call value investing, which is what he calls it.
Yeah.
The twist, such as it is for us, is that we do it with these multiple dimensions, and we take several cuts at it. So what we would typically do is we'd import data. We only use the S&P 500 stocks because we want to make it conservative, and we only go long, and we're not day traders, and so we don't have options either. No cryptocurrency, no commodities, none of that stuff. And so
what about how important are dividends in this model?
we like dividends a lot, just like Warren Buffett does. So dividends, it makes it so that you can make money even if the stock's going down. And so dividends is a feature of the stock, just like the feature of the washing machine is what's its capacity. The dividends is saying that, I'm going to give you money every year. The company is saying, based on my history, I'm going to give you a dividend because you've invested in us. I'm going to give you some money back. And so we're big fans of dividends, very big fans of dividends. And so one of the things you can do when you pull the data in from the S&P 500, I pull it in through TD Ameritrade. Well, it used to be TD Ameritrade, now it's Schwab, but I get their Think and Swim data. come in, and
Mhm.
then what we do is we condition the data, which is to say we get rid of the stuff that all the data elements that don't have any data in it. We have to remove those because the
Mhm.
program will blow up if you don't do that. And then what
Okay.
we do is we try to test to see what people are buying. So in 2000, when we started the fund, dividends were really the bomb. And so if you pick dividends, you could actually find out the stocks that were undervalued with respect to dividends. Now then, what's happened since then is there two pretty big events happened for us, at least in the financial world. One was COVID hit,
Sure.
and then event number two was the Fed, in its infinite lack of wisdom, we would argue, decided that it would be a great idea to crank the money supply up by 400% plus. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that right. 400% plus in two
Yeah.
quarters.
Yeah.
Now we are still feeling the effects of that, this inflation
Sure.
that we have, and I think inflation is underreported. I imagine
Oh,
some of
yeah.
you listeners do too.
I
It's
know.
had an
I
impact
would
in the
think
market.
inflation's closer to 30%. Forget this
Yeah.
8% or whatever. I mean, anybody
Oh,
going to the grocery store, I mean, there's some things I buy, I'll just give you an example. Do you know SodaStream? You know, those
yes, I
canisters,
do.
basically,
Yep.
I love those things. You can make your own seltzer water, basically,
Right.
carbonated water. I used to pay $11 to do a replacement canister. If
Uh-huh.
you exchange the canister, right? It's now like $22.
Oh,
That's
geez.
100% inflation. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
but
Wow.
it's only $11. Yeah, but it's 100% inflation. So go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wait,
So
so
anyway,
you
that threw us
actually
for a bit of a loop, but yeah, we
well,
look at
let me
dividends.
ask you. Okay, because you have your program, your computer program
Uh-huh.
that you offer to people. And
Hmm.
there's a book too. But did I hear you say you actually have a fund also?
Yeah, well, it's my own personal money, and we've attracted
Oh,
some
okay,
interest from some other people. We are thinking of expanding it to make it open to the public,
okay.
with some other firms. And so we have another firm that or two
Mm,
that's been interested in us for a while because we're doing pretty well with this
yeah.
because it's both conservative and it's beating the S&P 500.
And
And
it's you said you've been doing this for 4 years. Is that what it
yeah,
is?
it'll be
Is that
4 years come the 20th of February. So yeah, four
can you
years.
share? Are you allowed to share your results on radio?
Yeah, we are if we applied an index to us, we're up 72%. We're 172% of what we started at after all the trades and everything. And
Okay.
it works out to an annual rate of return of about 9%. So,
Okay.
which is pretty good considering how up uneven the market's been over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
it's doing pretty well. Now,
Yeah.
having said that, we only have one person working that. That's me. We're going to intend to, if we get more people on it, we think we'll do better because we'll be able to do more research and find other opportunities, and then
Well, yeah, and then
buy
when you
more.
get these black swan events, it kind of changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no way. We thought we modeled a whole bunch. We pre-modeled this before we did it. We back tested up markets, back tested down markets, but
Yeah.
who could ever back test a 400% increase in the money supply? I mean,
No.
it's unprecedented. How can you do that? I mean,
Well, it's
we
interesting
wouldn't
because
even have thought that back then. So,
yeah, like my shtick is real estate, but
uh-huh,
I would rather be a lender because it's more conservative than being an owner of real estate.
sure. Hmm.
Yes, I own my home, but I don't look at that as an investment. That's just it's a place
Sure.
where I live, right? And who we didn't know that COVID was going to do what it did.
Oh, right. No.
I
Uh-uh.
mean, now it turns out that we've actually, benefited from it. But things could happen. And when I tell people, as I said, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on with regard to, I call it an invasion at the southern border, um, with all those millions of people coming in, they're going to need a place to live. And
Right.
and so
Yeah.
eventually, I just don't see real estate right now. My crystal ball doesn't say it's going to plummet, but stay with us, Doug. We're going to go to our next commercial break, and
Sure.
audience, don't touch that dial. When we come back, we're going to have some closing comments. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Doug Haworth. So, Doug, if people are interested in looking you up with Hypernomics, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to the website, which is hypernomics.com, hypernomics.com. There you'll find data about our software, links to some of our posts, our blogs, other videos that I've done, and then links to the book that I've just produced entitled Hypernomics: Using Hidden Dimensions to Solve Unseen Problems. And for those of you that want to go to my personal website, you can go to doughowarth.com and you can write me there, or you can write me at the company website, and I'll return your email.
Great. Well, Doug, thank you so much for being our guest. I want to
Thanks.
move on
I really
to.
appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. So now there's a fund that I actually manage called the Pacific Southwest Note Fund. It's part of the Pacific Private Money family of funds, and we just produce just an 8.5% distribution to our clients. The average, yeah, because it's very conservative. We buy discounted mortgages from banks, hedge funds, et cetera, and then we also lend against discounted mortgages from a company that provides us the mortgages. So it's super conservative. The average loan to value is only 54%, but because we're buying the notes at a discount, our average LTV, our average investment to value is only 37%. So you'd have to have more than a 60% drop in real estate in a short period of time for us to lose. So we feel very confident about that. So for more information on that, just go to pacificprivatemoney.com and look up the tab for Invest Now and look at the Southwest Note Fund, and we'll give you information. So it's interesting because I've had a number of clients say, 8.5% is great. It's very conservative, but boy, for buying these notes at a discount, the people you're dealing with, they're probably making bank on this. And I said, well, yeah, we're just trying to be the conservative little old lady, give us 8.5%. So they say, well, is there any way for us to participate in potentially these profits? And I said, well, I don't know. Let me find out. So it looks like we're going to potentially allow clients to invest in a way where we're going to give them most likely, and don't hold me to this, but most likely a 12% return. But it'll be deferred for up to 2 years because it takes a while to go through the foreclosures in certain states, and sometimes you work out deals with the borrowers to pay for a little bit longer, and there's some nuances to it. So again, we haven't set it up yet, but we're thinking about it. So if anybody's interested, just call. You can still call that 888-912-1190 number and leave your message on there and say, you know what, I heard you talking about this potential 12%. Keep me on the list or something like this. Is how to get a hold of me, or if you're interested in the 8.5% return, again 888-912-1190, and then we'll talk. There's no guarantees on anything, but so far we've been extremely conservative with our Southwest Note Fund, where we're paying 8.5%. We've raised I think about $9 million right now.
Wow,
so that's considered a fairly small fund. We also have the Pacific Freedom Fund, which just pays either 8, 9, or 10%, depending upon how much money you put in. And on that one, we don't buy discounted notes. We actually originate, just like a regular bank. And we're doing primarily bridge loans. So people want to buy a house. They haven't sold their first house, but they want to buy the next one first. Kind of buying that one before they sell the other one makes life a little bit easier. So again, check out pacificprivatemoney.com. All right, Doug, you ready for our thoughts for the day?
Sure.
Here we go.
Fire away.
Okay. So I changed my password to incorrect. So anytime I forget and enter the wrong thing, the computer tells me what it is. Not bad. And I went for a COVID test, and my doctor asked if I had a sudden loss of taste. I said, no, I always dress this way. Okay, tune in. There you go. Every once in a while I get a guest on who doesn't laugh. I go, what did I do wrong? These are good dad jokes. All right, audience, tune in next week to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.